This week, two Republican congressmen introduced legislation under the Hearing Protection Act to make gun silencers easier to buy. Now, some people call silencers suppressors. Currently, there's a tax and a lengthy background check to purchase one. Well, the American Suppressors Association has worked for years to remove those requirements. And I met with the president of that group, who thinks that the bill will become law under the Trump presidency, and there is a key endorsement that he thinks will help.
Yes.
Daniel Craig used one in Casino Royale.
The second is...
Javier Bardem used one in No Country for Old Men. A gun silencer. Shooting enthusiasts call it a suppressor. It's an assassin's must-have in movies.
For most people, even gun owners in this country, the only time that they've actually seen a suppressor is in film. Through Hollywood.
In real life, it's a heavily regulated gun accessory that Knox Williams says makes shooting safer.
These things reduce the noise of a gunshot. They bring the noise down to safer levels from a hearing conservation perspective.
Williams is president and CEO of the American Suppressors Association, an advocacy group working to make suppressors easier to buy.
We've got a campaign called No State Left Behind, where we're going through and trying to legalize it so that suppressors can be legal for ownership and for hunting in all 50 states.
Now his fight has reached Congress. Representatives Jeff Duncan of South Carolina and John Carter of Texas have introduced what they call the Hearing Protection Act. The goal is to lift the provisions of the National Firearms Act of 1934 placed on the suppressor, a $200 tax and a background check that gun shop owners say could last a year. Gun control advocates say the bill is about militarizing weapons, not about hearing.
It's a complete misunderstanding of the noise levels that unsuppressed firearms have, the risk that both recreational shooters and hunters have to things like tinnitus, which is ringing in your ears, and noise-induced hearing loss as a result of exposure to loud noises.
Opponents say suppressors will allow mass shooters to kill stealthily. To demonstrate the noise reduction, Williams fired rounds from several guns with and without a suppressor. First up, a 9mm without the suppressor. And now with the suppressor. The AR-15 without the suppressor. And now with it. A noticeable difference, but nothing as dramatic as Leonardo DiCaprio's muted rounds in Inception. The 2015 bill failed to change suppressor laws, but Williams and gun rights advocates are optimistic this session. Why?
Second Amendment, 100%. Remember
it. Donald Trump won the presidency.
If we can get the Hearing Protection Act to his desk, we believe that he will sign it. That wasn't the case under the Obama administration.
Donald Trump Jr. told a suppressor manufacturer as much during the campaign.
We want to go through Congress, we want to do it the right way, but if you line up those votes, he's obviously going to be for it. I mean, it wouldn't make sense otherwise. It's about safety. It's about hearing protection. It's a health issue, frankly, for me. Getting little kids into the game, it's greatly reduces recall. I mean, it's just a great instrument. There's nothing bad about it at all.
The bill is just days old, and members of Congress are now taking sides, gearing up for what could be the next big gun battle on Capitol Hill. All right, that's the view from proponents. Next, we'll talk to an opponent, a gun control advocate who says this is a recipe for disaster. That conversation after the break. Republicans have introduced a bill that will make it easier to buy a gun silencer. Some call it a suppressor. They say that this is a public health effort. But my next guest says that the legislation only exacerbates the danger for more criminal activity. Joining me now, Ladd Everett, Director of Communications for the Coalition to Stop Gun Violence. Ladd, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning. Just to correct you there, I actually work with One Pulse for America, George Kay's gun violence prevention group.
My apologies, One Pulse for America. So we heard from the president of the American Suppressors Association there that this is about public health. You say that's bunk. From your perspective, what is this about?
Well, this is about expanding profits for the gun industry. You know, the gun industry for quite some time has been dealing with a saturated market of customers. Gun ownership has been steadily declining in this country for decades. And the challenge for the gun industry is to figure out what products they can sell someone who already owns, let's say, 5, 6, 7 guns. One way to do that is by selling them accessories. As you pointed out in your segment earlier, silencers have been extremely well regulated since the 1930s. That law has worked beautifully. These silencers are rarely, if ever, used in crime. And the weakening of regulations here, I fear, could be very dangerous both in mass shooting situations, but also in recreational shooting situations.
Let me come back to that in a moment. And gun sales have been holding for some time and increasing over a certain period of years. But let's talk about the health element here. Proponents of this law point to a 2011 CDC report about the impact of the noise in gun ranges and classes, and this is from that CDC report. The only potentially effective noise control method to reduce students or instructors' noise exposure from gunfire is through the use of noise suppressors that can be attached to the end of the gun barrel. So can both not be true here, that this is in part about profits? I mean, any company that's a nonprofit is in this to make money, but also there is a health benefit for shooters and hunters?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I have no idea what report you just cited or who the actual authors were, but I have not seen any.
It's a CDC 2011 report, and for people who are watching, I'll tweet it out after we finish with the show at 9.
Yeah, well, look, I have yet to see any actual evidence of a public health problem, any actual research into hearing problems with gun owners. But last I checked, earplugs are still readily available. Ear muffs are still readily available at shooting ranges. There are a whole range of products to help with noise suppression for shooters. The problem with silencers, particularly in a recreational shooting situation like, let's say, hunting, is you want people in the vicinity of gunfire to be able to hear the report of a firearm. That in itself is a key safety element, because if there are people around you when you're hunting, let's say, you might not be aware of their presence. The report of gunfire allows them either to identify themselves to you or to move safely out of that area if necessary. That's just common sense. And this stands to be dangerous, particularly for people in those types of recreational shooting situations.
We've got a minute left here, and you know the realities of the numbers in Washington. Donald Trump now in the office, Donald Trump Jr. supporting this, the loosening of regulations here. Do you expect the law will change?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I certainly don't think Donald Trump Jr. will be effective in promoting that law. I don't think nepotism is playing too well for the Trump team right now. I think if they do try to push this, they'll have a fight on their hands. I think the whole notion of this being about hearing protection is utterly asinine. And I think it will be very easy for the American public to see exactly what this is about, which is pretty much a blatant corporate handout to the gun lobby.
All right, Lad Everett with One Pulse for America. I get it right that time?
You did indeed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Christy?